Hello, this is Daryl with Earning Our Rights. I'm a Northeast Pennsylvania transplant working on developing writing skills. So I've gathered some local writers who are very proficient and dedicated to the process of developing their thoughts and putting them on paper. Wanted to start off by discussing some of the social themes and burgeoning hobbies that we see in the Northeast Pennsylvania region. Let's start with finding out who's been here the longest, what they've seen. I'll go around the table. How long introduce yourself. Let us know how long you've been in the area.
My name is Mark. I've been in the area my whole life. That's 38 years. So I don't know how I stand among everybody else, but I've been here a while.
I'm Karl. I'm a transplant from Vermont. Prior to that, I was a transplant born and raised in the Eastern Shore, Maryland. I've lived here since 2003, so math tells me that's 16 years.
I'm Sara, and I am a local. I've lived here all my life, most of my life. Spent some of my time living with Karl up in Vermont, and I am 46.
I'm Marcy. I'm from Central Pennsylvania originally. I've attended Wilkes in Wilkes-Barre for college, but I've lived in the region pretty consistently since 2002.
I'm Dan. I came up here in the early 90s, brought in grunge, and that was a long time ago. I'm less than equal to Matt, so it's been a bit, and I'm old.
So, over the course of the past 10 years or so, I've been in and out of the area. This is Daryl again. I wanted to collect from you guys an idea of what's new. I see that they have the first Fridays, and I'm seeing a good 3 or 4 poetry readings. I'm also seeing a couple of galleries. What didn't exist 5-10 years ago?
Pretty much any of that. I mean, yeah, you're right. You have First Friday is pretty new, relatively, and a couple other areas aside from Scranton are trying to pick up some kind of thing like that. Poets Live is a group that does a lot of things. Brian's group, what do they call themselves? They do
The Writers Showcase.
The Writers Showcase is also up in Scranton.
Adezo has that open mic, Be Daring on Wednesday nights. That's pretty new, and they're pretty consistent about that.
The consistency is the key. Like that, these are things that happen regularly, so there's always kind of an outlet.
Even on the theater front, I'm seeing a lot of different groups and a lot of different venues that have full productions or even smaller 1 or 2 people shows in the area. As a matter of fact, some of the people within this group have performed and do regularly perform.
Yeah, me.
Marcy, are you familiar with approximately how many groups are in the immediate area between Scranton, Wilkes-Barre?
I really don't know. I mean, Wilkes-Barre's got Gaslight. They don't really have their own theater space, but people let them borrow theater space. Little Theater Wilkes-Barre. There's the Music Box over across the river. The Red Door Collective is having lots of theater pieces lately.
The Jazz Cafe's been going strong for music for a long time.
That's good.
Too.
That's good. And then, in Scranton, there's the New Vintage Players. They also don't have their own space, and they kind of float around. But there's Diva Theater in Providence and Actors Circle, too.
So, ultimately, between art, theater, music, it's a burgeoning community where there are some possibilities for people to really explore and develop, which is ultimately what I'm feeling inspired by for some of my desire to develop in and as a writer.
I think it's key too that with all these groups coming out that we start to get to know each other. And that's why what you're doing is really nice. That it's how you start to network between some of those places that don't have a space. Maybe you start to get to know each other, because if we're all just kind of doing it on our own, a lot of things can kind of peter out. But if you get a group of people, it tends to work better.
Yeah, I only recently started looking for a community of creative people. I got very frustrated trying to get my regular friends who are not that motivated to do things, and they said they would and they didn't. So I wanted to meet people who were motivated, and I found it's a very tough process because you have to meet somebody who knows somebody who gets you involved in these sorts of things.
And you gotta have the group. A lot of times you get like these gatekeeping kind of groups where it's hard to know the people. They have their own thing. They don't want to share. And, you gotta form like Voltron as artists.
Yeah, it's almost like an underground. It's like its own little
it's just
you need the password to get in sometimes.
Like a speakeasy or something.
Right.
These little slick licks. Soliloquy.
Roddy's in. Let him in.
So that's kind of the basis for our little thing here that we started with this notion that, hey, we should work together and help promote each other because it's hard. And a lot of the stuff we do, theater, poetry, even the podcast to an extent till it can go somewhere, is kind of under the radar, like Mark said. So you need that support. You don't want to just stand there in an empty room reading something. Sure. You need people to kind of come out. And it's good to support the arts because without them, life is super boring.
Yeah.
Super boring.
Super boring. Sucks.
A lot of drinking.
Yeah. Cool. What was this area like before a lot of this?
It was more drinking.
Cruise the
Wasn't
Ave.
there a Guinness record at some point or another, perhaps around Nanacoke, for the most
Plymouth.
Plymouth,
bars
the
or
most
something?
bars.
Per
Yeah.
capita?
Bars and church.
We would drink,
Church bar.
cruise the Ave, go bowling, walk around the mall.
Church with a bar in it.
Like if you don't have a thing, if you're not exposed to something young, it's kind of hard to get into it,
And you know what? With the idea of this area changing and the development that we're seeing with the potential that people have for art, we're also seeing perhaps a decline in drinking. Isn't that a major trend that's happening now? There's this old bastion of alcoholics, and this new generation is saying, we don't really care to drink anymore. Not at the same rate that you guys drink. As a matter of fact, even beverages like Truly, for example, where it's just water with a spritz of alcohol, which, by the way, is delicious.
Some of them are actually pretty good, right?
They are.
It's like, okay.
We don't necessarily care about the bad habits and old hobbies that used to be 100 years strong. Some of those old hobbies, I think, are on a national decline. Even some of the sports franchises, I imagine, are seeing some decline.
Well, it's like you have your old hobbies of drinking, and people are wanting new hobbies that maybe nourish the soul a little bit more.
Hobbies that don't
Alcohol
kill
for
you.
the soul.
But I think there's also a trend toward incorporating drinking with hobbies. You have you come here and paint and drink, come here and throw axes and drink, come here
Movies that you can watch.
movies and drink.
Like you watch, eat, drink beer.
It's like that's a selling point, and then we're tricking you into doing something creative.
Yeah. Which, hey, I am going to say, though, in alcohol's defense, I've written quite a lot of good stuff inebriated.
Some of it was not as good the next day. But
But
when I was
in the
writing it, I
moment-
was convinced.
In the moment, I was like, what's the profanity thing? Am I allowed to curse? Okay. I was like, fuck yeah. This is it. This Pulitzer right here, baby. And then I got drunk and
Booker
forgot where I
Award
put
at
it.
least, right? Booker
Yeah.
Award.
The Book Award. There's a Hugo, maybe.
That's a nice idea. If you go out and you drink and you throw axes,
Yeah.
This is a real thing.
as long
This is
as
a
you
real
don't,
thing now. We
as
have
long
axe
as you
throwing.
don't hit anybody, you can drive home. That should be the rule.
Truth.
It's better than a breathalyzer.
Yes. And there is now axe throwing in the area. So
Nice.
you can actually.
There's also a rage room in Coconut.
Oh, I saw the Rage Room where you just go smash stuff.
Yeah. TVs, whatever.
First world. Good times there.
Be a rock star.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do the Motley Crue thing.
It was a little weird though because they were looking for donations.
Yeah.
But then they were going to charge you for your, 25 minutes in the room or
Well,
whatever.
you guys assume they're just going to the Salvation Army buying this stuff all the time, right? Because
Well, right, but why should I just give them my TV? They should buy my TV. my old TV, my big honking TV.
But they give you the space to smash the TV. So.
Yeah. And they
I
paint
could do that
shows.
in my own home.
That's true.
Yeah,
Then
but
you have to clean it up.
Yeah, that's
I'll
that's
take
the
some of
catch.
the axes. I won't drive anywhere.
You can drink all you
lay
want.
down the
Drink all I
tar.
want.
Yeah.
Brought to you by Truly.
They used to go to the
Let your
landfill,
rage
like,
out.
Smash everything I could find.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Truly.
last time that Dan and I were talking, we were talking about some of the trends that we were seeing in TV and media. I think that within the past 5 years, I don't know if it has something to do with the advent of like Netflix and Amazon Prime and Hulu, but I think I'm seeing some really good content that I wouldn't have seen 5-10 years ago. I know that BoJack Horseman was our first major. Well, this just defies all of our expectations for what we've seen on TV. But I think that there's a lot more of that. Handmaid's Tale, I haven't actually watched it yet, but I understand that that's actually pretty groundbreaking. Some of the materials that they cover, I think, are more brave than we would have seen on traditional TV, and the new wave is pretty exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it reminds me of, and it's kind of a full circle thing now at this point, that with those streaming networks and everything else, they were really high on artistic freedom. And that was what it started drawing all the good writers into, I think, is what happened. Because great writers will always go where they can be free. And it reminded me a lot of comics in the 80s, when the graphic novels started, and you had people like Alan Moore, who else am I thinking of? Neil Gaiman. Friends with Sandman, which is actually going to be released on Netflix, which has me just doing cartwheels.
Awesome.
And you know what?
Can't wait to see how they do that.
That's pretty circular in a way, because it is Netflix. It is that streaming service that's taking the leap with investing in content.
Yeah, and that's the key. They invest in content, and it's weird too. A lot of cartoons tend to be a groundbreaking. Frequent, like BoJack was a big one, Rick and Morty, but even just like regular shows where you get that thread of Sopranos. What was it? Where did it really start? The Wire, Sopranos, Oz, HBO really was that big thing, and their whole thing was, we're going to create content, and I think it's almost ironic because they had to sell them, right? You need to buy HBO, so their whole pitch was, we have the best shows.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way Netflix did it. I think that model of, people are going to come where the content is. Because let's be honest, most movies today are pretty bad.
And formulaic.
Yeah, superficial too. It's all about, if you shut your brain off, it's fine. But there's no real, usually deeper meaning or anything. And I think that's where TV really picked up that niche.
Yeah, and I guess it's kind of funny that TV is leading in a way when it comes to actually provoking. I suppose there's always the indie film industry, but the exposure to that is limited.
And music used to be the big one too, but a lot of music is fragmented now because it's all Spotify, Bandcamp, all that. There's not really that medium that you can put the cultural zeitgeist through that we used to always have. I mean, even poetry used to be it for a long time, theater was it for a long time, but it seems like a lot of those, like we said, are kind of underground. There's a lot of great music out there, but you got to find it. Somebody's got to tell you about it. Whereas TV is kind of, with Netflix, they're like, hey, here's all the stuff we have. And I think it's easier to find quality content there. The question is, though, you can get very lost. Like, there is that question of, are you better off binge watching a show or going to a play? I don't know. Or balance, or... Because there's so many good shows out there I'll never watch. It kind of eats you up a little bit. You're like, my list keeps getting longer.
And you know what? I think the accessibility and the cost, too, hanging out at a movie theater is so much more cost prohibitive than a Netflix account that you borrowed from a friend without them knowing.
Which we all, yeah. Not like any of us have done that. No one here's using someone else's Hulu. Nah.
No.
Well, I mean, I think it's something utilitarian about these things. Like, they have something for everybody. They're much more cost affordable. And like you said, what does a movie cost today? Like $20, $30 all said and done. If you're getting stuff, go fuck yourself.
And
for crap, usually.
Depends on
Transformers 12.
Yeah, for Transformers 12.
Or just a remake of something
Yeah.
Oh,
I've
and
already
yeah.
seen.
And the reboot culture is absolutely, and that's it. What does TV have going for it? Originality. Like, go fuck off. I don't need another Batman at this point.
Well, I could always use another Batman.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Fair. Maybe a bad
Use a
example. How
Batman
about like
is-
another like a Ghostbusters 3? I don't need that. Like, it's just leave it alone. I don't need any more reboots, remakes.
Well, Hollywood has to make their investments back. When a movie costs $5 billion, then they need a franchise. They need a name that people are going to go and buy. So like, that's how. So far as I understand, I'm not in Hollywood, but I think that's how it works. So if you're not putting so much money into it, like Netflix, you're able to experiment a little bit more, like old Hollywood, like in the '60s maybe.
Well, Netflix is they're sink a ton of money. I don't think they make too much profit, to be honest with you, in all they invest. And no one really knows yet like how that's gonna go. So I think you're right. Like, Hollywood still has a business model,
Oh sure.
and they're just. I guess they start to play it safe after a while.
For $5 billion for the Star Wars franchise, they got to make a lot of money.
And they don't put quality into it, though. That's the sad. And then that's how they start to lose the money.
Yeah.
People eventually. That's how you vote. You vote with your wallet at this point.
The script is like the last priority.
Well, what was it, Last Jedi? It was
God,
the first
let's not-
draft, the first freaking draft they went with. That's an insane
I'm surprised
thing.
they had a full first draft.
Oh, it's just the lack. I think a lot of these reboots. You see, because you get a good one, like the Joker's coming out. That's supposed to be fantastic. The Dark Knight was a good one. Try to think of which other one. Better Call Saul is fantastic. Sandman had a great prequel. So I think it all depends on. It seems if the people involved actually care about the characters, you have a much better odd. If it's just, we don't have an idea, we're just going to spin this off because it was popular once before, it seems to flounder. But then the sad part is then you ruin what came before. Like, you can just cast a shadow on it. It's George Lucas going back and redoing Star Wars. It's like, why? Why would you do it? Leave it alone.
Money talks.
Money does talk sometimes.
Gotta sell those action figures.
Especially when Disney is poking and prodding at you, too.
Well, I think, too, like, as writers, there's something to be said for let it go, right? Because what was Whitman revised Leaves of Grass his whole damn life. Can you imagine buying the 4th copy of Leaves of Grass in your life? Just like, come on, dude, write something else. Like, once it's out, it's over. You have to kind of just let it go.
So, yeah, speaking of literary utilities, it's as soon as we went from Disney to let it go, I was wondering, was that deliberate?
I'm just good at segues, Sarah.
Okay.
Next time.
All right.
I just burst into random song because I try to live my life like a Disney musical. Chasing the butterflies, do a little ditty.
You saying you're a Disney princess?
Sometimes, Hey,
You gotta shave.
I gotta shave, yeah. No, I don't.
No,
I'm just,
Okay, it's 2009.
I just go for it, Rocky Horror Picture style.
So, that was a nice segue.
Being joined by others.
Dun-dun-dun.
Coming late to a podcast. The inaugural podcast.
I brought beer though. Like, that's one of the best
Thank
things.
you.
That
That's
was
good.
related to us.
We're late.
So, for those who can't see what's actually happening, we've been joined by 2 more people.
introduce themselves.
They've brought alcoholic beverages that are not Truly, so I have to express.
We don't know what they are. They're craft. Hey, well, there's something to be said about the
homebrew.
craft
Wow.
beer explosion in this area. I watched Al do his magic, and it's an incredible amount of craft. So
That's impressive.
there is something to be said to people just trying to try new things still.
This is a Wayne Wheeler Wit. We're my brew partner and I are naming all of our beers this year after famous prohibitionists. So we're calling this one Wheeler Tears. He wrote the Volstead Act, which was like, hey, I got stabbed by a pitchfork as a child. You shouldn't drink alcohol.
I think that's an interesting line,
I stole that from Drunk History,
Hey,
but
well,
because they did one on Wayne Wheeler.
But line of beers. Good line of
They
beers.
banned pitchforks.
Yeah.
So, Al, have you been brewing anything other than beer? Any comedy? Any writing?
Not lately. I've been crazy busy, but trying to get back into it. So
Get that Disney money. Al is a very good children's story writer who can write stories that actually have morals and themes and characters that you care about versus some of the stuff we kids get now, which is kind of sad.
I like characters that I can care about that don't have morals.
I mean, it's better than like watching somebody play with toys on YouTube, which, man, I miss that niche.
Was that a thing?
That is a thing. That is a thing where people became millionaires.
This kid is a millionaire. It's like Ryan's toy list. Like
just
all he
pulls
do
the
plays
toys out.
plays with him for like 4 seconds. It's totally not staged. Like his mom totally isn't telling him exactly what to say.
Twitch for toys, basically.
All right, so I got it. Let's dress up like kids. Get some toys and some puppets.
Dark web stuff.
Remember, I like the no morals thing, so there's really no rules about content.
Way dark web.
You guys are looking at my Pornhub history. Stop.
It didn't take too long for that to go off the rails. I wonder if anybody listening to this right now is like, it started out so... Sorry, it's probably going to be a lot of this, too. You're welcome, Internet.
You're welcome.
All right. So, who's been writing? I got some hands. Let's start up. What have you been working on?
I've been doing a couple different things, mostly on Instagram.
Okay.
Because with poetry, it's strange. It's a long process to get published. I'm going to be in an anthology in November with Marcy.
Congratulations.
But, usually that was a great turnaround because that's a local group who's doing that Poets Live. What? But usually when you're trying to get a poem published, you can wait up to 6 months. So I also wanted to just do some stuff freeform on the internet. So I've been doing a haiku series and some short poetry because it's just a nice little channel. Mm-hmm. So I suppose I could read a poem. So I actually write a lot about mental illness because it's super fun because I have depression and anxiety. So I wrote a poem about it called Sleepwalker, and it's super short, and I'll read it, and then we can get back to talking about toy porn or whatever. So this is called Sleepwalker. I am at most a pinpoint of identity, barely awake on any given day. My bed is a restless chameleon, shifting between emptiness, coffin, and nightmare. I have ceased pretending it will ever be any other way. What a strange death I am having. Bystander, emotional ping pong ball, unwitting accomplice. Either or in all the above, but never living, never free, never sound.
So, I know that you want to talk about toy porn, but I absolutely love the first line. I am, at most, a pinpoint of identity.
Yep.
Actually a little jelly,
Well, and see, the thing is, what I was trying to get across with that poem is, when you... Because depression, anxiety, I'm not trying to take it down this path, but they're tough to deal with. I know some other people at the table could speak to it, too, that a lot of times it just takes you over. So there's days where you feel like you're present and days where you're a little less because you're mostly battling stuff. So I wanted to get that sense of just... It is a strange way to kind of die. Like, it is a slow, dangerous turn. One of these times we could talk about that more than that. But that's what I'm trying to get across. It's like you're always trying to struggle to be that pinpoint of identity, be yourself.
Isn't it strange in a way that somebody can write something that's so tremendously introspective while losing themselves and regaining themselves, whereas other people may never have that battle or experience of having to define or understand their humanity and never experience any of the pangs of depression?
Well, and there is something to be said for any kind of, I think, any serious illness that kind of takes your agency away, that you're forced to think about a lot of things. And I think you do gain a lot of emotional intelligence because you're always constantly kind of internally examining what's going on, how much is me, what's the meds, what's this, what's that. So that's something I wanted to, that's why I called it Sleepwalker, because there is days where it just feels like you're just sleepwalking through life. And so to express that, I think, is important because too many people don't understand that kind of stuff because of the terms. They think it's, just being sad or being kind of, and it's not. It's the intensest, most possible emotional version of that, plus a ton of physical stuff. It's sucks. So I try to write a lot about that. So when I read, it's mostly on that topic. Now, although I try to write about anything, but like you said, if you're never forced to look internally, you lose something. So there is a silver lining to anything. And I think I could share that with somebody who maybe doesn't have to do that, and maybe then could do that. Be like, it is a good thing to understand, where I'm coming from, what I'm doing. And that's a huge part of writing well, is empathy. Like that's how you create interesting characters and plots and images.
I like this format because, like, whereas a poetry reading, after somebody says something or presents something, you don't have the opportunity to actually explore with them. You do your golf clap and they move on, and
You got awkward pause as soon as you're done. Poetry reads are wonderful, but I think one of the things that with poetry it became this weird art where it was so important, one of the most important, and then it kind of fell back to music. And so that a lot of those groups that do that can be very insulated, it can feel very staid, very, tweety, like the college, the stuffed up kind of thing. And I like reads that are a little more wild, like it was in the 60s. You think people, it depends on what you're writing about too. If you write about something that's honest, then that energy comes out. And I agree, it's always nice to hear what it's about, because poetry's hard to understand, when you just hear it sometimes. So it's good to get an explanation of, what I'm talking about.
What do you think, like, with poetry, there's that level of pretentiousness that, like, I've gone to poetry readings and, I might write in a more comedic style or, shorter, and I've had, great reactions from the audience, but I went to a Dezo's open mic, and some kid said, yeah, it was funny, but what you write isn't poetry. And I was like, okay, cool. Thanks, guy.
Like at any point we've ever determined what poetry is, because it's not like, because there's so many interests in it with any art. There's always that part where you get the new thing, where the old guard's kind of like, no, it's not. And then there's always, luckily, a couple people in that group that are perceptive enough to know that all art forms are constantly evolving. With the times, with the artists, with the themes, whatever, even though a lot of themes tend to be universal, of course. But, that you got to just kind of go with the flow with art. You got to let it be and see. And you can encounter a lot of, it's especially with poetry, I'd say with theater too, because there's such old art forms, a lot of people are it's tough to get into that. Once a group is started, they close ranks pretty quick on you. And
there's people that view themselves as gatekeepers, and they're protecting the sanctity of
the art form.
Is
this beer for me, Al?
It is, yes.
I've been seeing this quote.
There's one for you and one for Marcy. I didn't know exactly who else was.
I've been seeing this quote a lot about gatekeepers, where it's tradition is just peer pressure from ghosts.
Yeah.
At a certain point, you just got to let go and evolve.
Yeah, I wrote a poem once called "Poets Are Passive Aggressive Assholes Sometimes." Because I felt that I can't get this. You get that while I'm talking. But yeah, there is this. I mean, how many people do you think they actually name the poet laureate? I know they just changed. I don't even know if I can name who it is. Just that there's a self-importance that sometimes happens with art, and I think that can be valuable when you get somebody that uses it like Warhol did. We're creating a whole this is super meta scene thing, but it can also be crazy self-destructive, where it's just this is the niche. If you weren't here first, peace. That's it. And that's a weird thing, because it's not like poets are getting rich anymore or anything. You don't do it because of that. You do it because it's a good form of expression and needs to continue. Especially with our chunked culture, where everything's in little chunks. I feel like poetry can be a very vital part of that.
A vital chunk.
A vital chunk. Good little toy porn.
Oh, it's my turn?
Oh, it's your turn, Marcy.
So I've been working on a full-length play, the first one that I've written. It's called Pockets. It came about from a poem. I'd like to share the poem first, if I can. The poem's written by Sharon Owens. It's called Dangerous Coats. Someone clever once said women were not allowed pockets in case they carried leaflets to spread sedition, which means unrest to you and me. A grandiose word for common sense, fairness, kindness, equality. So ladies, start sewing dangerous coats made of pockets and sedition. I was trying to get a play together through Diva Theater. We had come up with an idea of having a play to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, which gave the women the right to vote. And well, we had come up with that idea in the fall, and by May we still didn't have anything. So I said, I'm going to try to find something. I'm going to get something down. And it didn't come. I read a whole bunch of suffrage documents, stories. Nothing really seemed like I could turn it into anything. So when I saw that poem, when my friend posted it online, that kind of gave me the impetus to go in a different direction. And so Pockets is sort of a story of how pockets give people power, and at the same time, the American woman's, her story, I guess, if you want to think of it that way. So I have a little snippet to share. This is the narrator. Her name is DJ. She's like a 20-something. And this is one of the interludes in between scenes. There was something else Grandma had in her pocket. It wasn't always there, only sometimes when she needed some extra confidence. See, she had this Latin medal she'd won in school, highest grade in her whole class for the subject. It looked like a big coin, bronze, and it was heavy, real metal, not plastic like trophies are today. Significant, like her hard work. She was proud of it, of herself. So when she had to run an election, or go demonstrate a craft technique for the ladies at church, or go to the funeral of a friend, that medal found its way into the pocket of her slacks or her coat and went along with her. If you didn't know about the award, you never would have known it was there. But if you did know it, you'd see her hand stray to that pocket. It didn't even always slip in to touch it. Her hand would just brush against the fabric, covering it inside to feel its strength, its symbolism of her tenacity. There was power inside that pocket. So that's just a little bit of it. Thanks.
I like that. I like the idea of having something that is a symbol of your power that you can grasp and remind yourself that you've conquered, that you've been able to rise and that you've been able to overcome. And I think that if you forget that, you can be weaker than your strongest. And
I agree.
I like the idea of how she's developed this relationship with her grandmother where she, whether it's an implicit understanding or a direct understanding, she's gaining that idea of identity and power from that.
Right, and how she could try to have that for herself. Yeah.
It's nice.
Did you have something to say, Sarah?
Well, just in general, the first thing that came to my mind was the meme of, that's a nice marsupial. Oh, thanks, it has pockets.
And it's funny that you brought that up because that's in the play. There's a whole bunch of projections because some of the topics are heavier, and there's a whole bunch of projections of memes about pockets, and the zookeeper's in there.
There's just watching a lot of reality TV and fashion TV and how adding pockets is like, people are like, oh, I made this dress. Oh, it has pockets, and everybody's like,
It's taboo, yeah.
Yeah, and just hearing it in relation to like the historical, that even now having pockets is like
Pockets on women's jeans would be possible. You could fit like a pink. Is that really
Yes.
why they're like that? This edition, like for leaflets?
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Boy, how bad does gender roles go? How deep does that go?
Well, and,
We
there's
find
not
how
really
sinister.
there's not really anything that I could find that specifically talked about that, but sure, that's the idea, right?
makes
the fact
sense.
that you'd be handing out leaflets like, hey, we should try to get the right to vote, or whatever.
It's almost like women could not have any private space, like at all.
Right.
Like not even on your own body. It's such a weird form of the patriarchy, just kind of writing onto
But
you.
you're
Like,
exactly right.
you can't have pockets.
Yeah, no, that would be like revolution.
You have a handbag or a purse.
Well, don't get me started on cursive. Yeah.
Well, fanny packs. We're bringing fanny packs.
Oh, yeah.
What do you
Neon
claim
green.
against purse?
Oh yeah, well I know you and your purses.
Just all wear backpacks. It would be nice.
Cargo pants with the giant
Wait.
pockets as big as
Right.
this.
Yeah, things like
wow.
I remember once reading about this concept in the male gaze. And it's interesting when you look at magazines that they sell, like something like Maxim and Cosmo. And I used to teach this one when I was teaching that, they both have women on it. Why? It's odd. right? And that the Cosmo, where the main audience is women, is more sexualized. It's all like how to have the best sexy life. They're the sex of the and like it was weird. Why isn't there a guy on that? There's a woman on the one that's like something like Maxim, and yet that one, even though they're usually more skimpily dressed, there's less articles about sex than that. And it's like, yeah, this just weird projection of view yourself as an object kind of thing.
Right, and even when I was, going on things for the internet, trying to find memes that I wanted to use and other things I wanted to incorporate, if you put pockets just in a search engine, just put pockets, so many pictures that come back are objectification pictures, right? It's like a woman from here down.
Yeah.
It's like from neck down or from like waist down, and it's just one part of her. It's not a whole woman entirely. But yeah.
Patriarchy's insidious,
Yeah.
The way to beat that though, hat pockets.
Hat pockets.
Think about it.
Or with hot
Now you have
pockets.
to show the
Hey,
head.
but then we have to bring hats back.
I like
I don't
hats.
know if
Hats are
people will
great.
do that.
Hats
I
are
like
great.
hats too.
I'm
I
wearing
would
a
like
hat
to have
currently.
hats.
I wouldn't mind hat pockets. I should
Usually
say
I wear
backpacks.
But still, what are you going to put in a hat pocket?
ID, change.
Fishing license?
Yeah.
Fishing license.
Fishing license.
I'm gonna start
Hunting
rolling up the
license.
cigarettes in my sleeve, like in the 50s.
Bringing it back.
Just makes me want
Roll
to
up my
have a whole
tampons in my sleeve.
outfit with pockets.
That would be fantastic.
I don't know if you
Just
could
a
put
sleeve full
a
of
tampon in
tampons.
your hat pocket. That would be
I mean,
that would be
maybe.
a challenge, I think.
You can tie 3 of them together and make a tampon bolo. No one would ever suspect it.
No.
Element
It
of
won't do a lot of
surprise.
damage, but if you come like with a nunchuck after, they'll be really surprised because they'll just be like, "Did you just throw tampons at me?"
And this is
And then
where
you
we
can
are.
sucker punch them.
Yeah, then you suck it because as they're looking at it, they're like, "What?" Then you just nunchuck.
if they hit your back.
Tampon nunchucks.
You
This
can
is
just
where
take
we're
the
at.
tampon up your nose, it gets the blood.
Well, it's a good range of subjects, which I think this is what writers talk about. That's what people talk about. I mean, they should. If people are not talking about tampon bolos at least once a year, I feel like we failed as a species.
We try.
Mozart,
Trying to fail as a species.
Sistine
Made me think
Chapel,
of
tampon
Ramen
bolos,
Ponzi
toy
scheme we
boy.
still have to collaborate on.
Roman Ponzi scheme.
Rami Ponzi scheme.
What is
Talk
it?
about writers coming up with ideas. Ages ago, I think we were drunk, right?
We were drunk and we were talking about Bernie Madoff. So, like, everyone knows Bernie Madoff, he's, the master of the modern Ponzi scheme, right? Like, he even duped the owners of the New York Mets. Like, part of the reason why they're in financial ruin right now is because Bernie Madoff was like, yeah, just keep investing money. You could do it. So then Marcy and I were drinking, and we both came across an article where Bernie actually, is the ramen kingpin for his, for Rikers Island right now, where he's in prison. Ramen's become the new cigarettes since the outlawed cigarettes. Like, if you have packages of ramen, you run that shit. So we're like
Ramen Ponzi scheme.
ramen Ponzi scheme.
Bernie Madoff at the head.
We just have to write
Oh
it.
man, I can't wait until I see the tell-all story of shit tickets and ramen noodles.
The Bernie Madoff.
Well, you gotta assume it's gonna be pretty easy to smuggle. It's probably crush it up.
Well, it's
Right?
it's just because
Roll it in
have
your
to
sleeve.
smoke it.
you
You
know
can get it from the
you just get it for
commissary.
the commissary.
the commissary, he still is very well connected. Even though he defrauded people with billions of dollars, he's still
say-
able to be like, oh, I'm just gonna buy out all the ramen commissaries. He's a made guy. He's untouchable right now.
I do have to say, though, banning smoking in prisons is pretty fucked up. Just as a smoker, but just as the concept of prison, it's like, yes, let those people have a cigarette occasionally, maybe. Keep them a little, that's
so
a
on edge.
mess. That's a mess. At least have a smoking area. I could deal with it not in the airport, not in restaurants, but if you're in fucking prison, let people have cigarettes. Come on. What are you doing?
You know what? Let model inmates have cigarettes.
Maybe. Yeah, that would be a great, somebody like, hey, you're a great
Yeah.
inmate.
Yeah.
It's a privilege, Because it's not like our prisons are busted or anything like that. That's not like that's an issue. I'm not going to turn it there. But it's not like more population in America's in prison than any other.
Land of the free. Huzzah.
So,
Home of the ramen noodles.
Sarah, did you have anything that you were writing?
Well, I have things I'm working on, but unfortunately I did not bring them.
Oh,
Sorry. But just as a heads up for potential novel writers, it's that time of year again with National Novel Writing Month.
what is it,
NaNoWriMo?
NaNoWriMo.
Yep, and it's writing 50,000 words in the month of November.
And what does that stand for again?
National Novel Writing Month.
Okay.
And Carl and I have been doing it on and off for the past several years.
Decade
Carl's
at least.
finished several, or at least gotten to 50,000 words numerous times.
Cracked a beer and said, I'm done. I'll look at this later. And I never do.
It's tough because you're writing like 1,600 something words a day.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't sound like much, but it's difficult.
A lot when you're sitting in front of your computer.
Yes, it's very difficult.
Sarah, how do you brainstorm? What do you like to do when you're brainstorming? Do you
I
have a
get my
process, or-
ideas from all sorts of weird places, like watching TV, listening to Carl a lot.
Yeah.
Even sitting here, like I'm writing down ideas for various things. So a lot of that is just keeping a notebook and writing down the ideas, and then at some point sitting and going through. Carl gave me somewhat of an idea for this next NaNoWriMo.
You look surprised.
Sharing. I have a thing for coyotes, and
Yes.
in World War II, there was a pilot before he went off to war. He was given a baby coyote to kill. Basically, he would dust people's fields or kill, coyotes for farmers. Farmer found a baby coyote, gave it to him to do what he wanted. Well, he ended up actually smuggling the coyote with him over to England, and the coyote went with him on several bombing missions. In fact, the coyote had dog tags. The squad actually adopted him, and that story is going to transform itself into my NaNoWriMo elements. But just of, finding ideas everywhere, being a sponge.
So is that like advice? Like I've, never sat down and thought like, hey, I could do NaNoWriMo. But for someone who is interested in that, like, you recommend thinking of these ideas earlier on, as opposed to, trying to start fresh, right? Like
It depends on how you are as a writer, because Carl can fly with things on. Yeah, he's
shaking
like
his head, yes and no.
This is
For this perfect for this medium.
This is the man
right?
who once said, if all else fails, write porn.
Yes, this is
Yes.
true. I have quoted in that.
Yes, and he's written whole NaNoWriMos with porn. But then there are people that need to plan, and I'm more of the planner, and he's more of the fly by the seat of his pants type. But I mean,
I guess because from my understanding, like, the spirit is you're trying to write this novel within the whole month, and I don't know. I think I would probably try to be ballsy enough to be like, oh, let me just start from scratch November 1st, but then I think I would, just stall out very quickly.
you know what? The big thing that I run into is if, like, I can write, like, the words a day if I turn off that internal censor that tells me everything needs to be good. If you just sit and write and write and write and not worry about whether or not it's good or whether or not you think it's going to fit into someone else's, perfect grammar, whatever. If you just sit to write and get your ideas out and
Well, I think there's something to be said too for like always writing your like if you get a cool little snippet, write it down. You know, Billy
Right.
Corgan used to say, "Don't throw a riff away."
Right.
And I remember, I think it was Terry Pratchett who's like, I used to aim for like 4 pages, and then he just dropped it down to like 400 words. And it's like, you know
Yes.
what? I'm always writing that. There's no like, you just got to find your thing.
Right.
To just challenge yourself, and something like that is great because it is a challenge, and it
Yeah.
is hard to write an entire novel in a month, but there should be more of that, more ways to challenge writers because that's how you get good at it. Writing usually comes with a deadline if you do it at any professional level
Right.
too.
Right. And like learning how
George
to
R. R. Martin, you bastard.
yes. And learning how to write with turning off that little internal censor. Actually, I've found that it's helped me in other aspects of creativity because I paint as well. And now I can sit and paint and not worry about whether I want everybody to think it's beautiful. I can sit and paint and feel it more. It's almost more like organic. And
Which usually the best art tends to come from that you're
Yeah.
just going for it. And I think too, like, I'll give them a shout out in this, the Writing Hand. There are great groups out there that exist that simply just you submit your work and you get constructive feedback, and that's way more helpful than just as in the process you go. It doesn't matter if I think this is perfect because there's an outlook or there's a tool. And I'd say if you're in a community where you're trying to start writing, that's 2 big things to have. One is to have that ability to have that group. That was Daryl, by the way. You yelled at us in the beginning. But you should always, because you want the group, you want stuff like Now Arena that has a prompt, has a purpose to motivate you to write, and then you want groups that exist not to give you prompts, but to give you feedback. And you have to be able to take that feedback and kill your darlings and all that stuff. You have to have thin skin and just hear it out. You know, that's good. It's good that stuff like that exists. I wish there was more.
I think that Sarah has a really good point, though, right? Like, not only just turning off that, is it going to be okay or not, but the idea that, like, just go with what you need to do at that point. You know, when I did NaNoWriMo both times, if I had an idea for a certain chapter, I just wrote that chapter. Like, I named everything with song titles so I can move it around as I need to. I just wrote what I felt like writing. I think that really yields better results.
I did too. I did the same exact thing when I wrote a novel. It was whatever chapter's coming. You know, it's even like when you write essays. I used to tell kids that you can just, don't worry about the intro. Come back to that later. Get a rough idea of your thesis, you just have to. The most important part of creating anything is, I think it's weird for artists to agree, but I think we will all agree that in the process, you just got to be in the moment. You just got to be in the process. And if you have that voice saying, "No, this sucks. This isn't good," or what other people are going to think, you're just hurting yourself. That the moment of creation has to be pure. Otherwise, it shows too. You can tell when people were trying to craft something because it's usually the most generic essence of the form. It's very, goes by the book. It lacks that passion.
Yeah. But I think there's something to be said. I don't know. I have the same voice that says, "No, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks," and sometimes it does suck. So sometimes I have to listen to that voice because I always think if you say, "I need a word limit," you're going to just churn it out either way, without regards for how it's going to turn out. So I mean, I've written 50,000 words, 80,000 words, whatever, and then like this wasn't good. This isn't a good foundation, and I wasted all that time. So instead of giving myself a word limit, sometimes I try to think like, I'll do like one writing task, or I'll spend 1 hour a day, like a time where I can think about it. I'm not necessarily just putting words on a paper and making a path to nowhere, you know?
Right.
Where I would think, here's where I have to go, here's a good idea, and then, I feel like that kind of safeguards me from making a mistake where I'm just compounding the mistake every day and then throwing it all away.
Well, I think though what you're getting to, Mark, is how important revision is. And I think can't you do like both at some level? Like in the moment be there, but once it's written, that's when you go back with that critical eye and go, okay, is this worth it?
Yeah, read through and
that's
find
when you
your
let
little jewel
your voice first, and then that other voice, and then other people going, yeah, this is worth keeping, or this is crap, or whatever.
I think it depends. I mean, on how you write.
Yeah,
because like I would prefer to take 5 times longer and write it well the first time and not have to revise it. But I mean, it just depends on how it goes.
Yeah. Well, Frank O'Hare just did his poems on his lunch and never because he didn't believe in revision. Then E. Cummings revised each one 100 times, 200 times. So
they still make no sense.
Yeah, I still think maybe the best advice is don't have anybody else's process. Find your own process.
I think that's
I think
great.
as a
Exactly,
community
yeah.
of writers, we can then create. We know that there's people who want prompts, so you got to create that kind of stuff. We know there's people who want feedback groups. We need that kind of thing. We know there's people who want to go on podcasts, so we need podcast like that kind of recognition of both. Everybody does it differently, but we all need the same kind of tools available.
Like you go out and buy a book about how to write, and that person's going to tell you A, B, and C, and then you buy another book, and they're going to tell you C, B, and A. And it's like there are no rules.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is you have to figure out what's going to work for you and try to set goals for yourself that you think are accomplished, able to be accomplished. Like at the start of the year, I decided, okay, I'm going to really try to write every day, or give me a day off a week or something like that. And when I've been keeping track of it, it's a lot of like what you're saying. Sometimes it's planning things, or just going through like my list of ideas that I wrote down, like Sarah brought up, being like, well, no, maybe that's not anything I want to focus on right now, but maybe this would work. Like just trying to do some kind of writing exercise even every day.
That's like self-care for the artist's soul. taking like an hour to do your creative however you need to do it.
And it could be even so. If you're having a rough day, submit something. You always, as long as you're doing something. And I think there is an extent that you can also say yourself, you're allowed to take breaks. You're allowed to. You only fail at creating when you stop creating. So if you're only doing it once a month, at least once a year, whatever, as long as you're doing something.
Yeah.
If you push too hard, you burn yourself out, and you hate it, and you stop.
And let's be honest, the industry is not conducive to getting writing out. It just really isn't. I mean, it's just, there's back to where all the good writers go, and they're going to the place where they can get their writing the fuck out. So that's like TV, the guy in graphic novels. Like, how hard is it to publish a novel now? How hard is it to get a poem published, or to even like, most of the forms you can't make a living off of. A lot of people, most of us can't make a living off our regular jobs. Most of us are working 2-3 jobs, freelance writing, all this other bullshit. So
this idea about burnout, with with NaNoWriMo, do you find that like in December you're just kind of like, all right,
Brain dead.
I've got to step away. I've burnt myself out. I'm gonna go and watch like.
That's usually midway through NaNoWriMo too. You get burned out, and you have to have your day of I need to do self-care and step away from everything.
It's
And
like November 4th.
yeah.
It usually hit me around the 10th to the 12th. It's like, all right, it's November 10th. I should have 6,000 words, I think. How the math goes. No, wait. No, I should have
More than that.
more than that. Yeah, man. That's like 16,000 some words, and I'm like, I'm at 13,000. All right, some porn. All right, that was horrible porn. That was degenerate
Helps your
nastiness. And I have disgusted myself and no longer wish to continue this project. So you're like, well, the words are there, so I'll just pick it up and we'll go, all right, so that was a fantasy my main character had while he was taking a shit. And that's how you work it in. But yeah, I definitely get I can definitely relate. You get in that burnout
happens a lot.
halfway through, a little before, half, a little. You just gotta, pound some energy drinks or whatever, and
Weekend warrior it.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's a couple years I did it. A couple years that I did it, I never wrote during the week. It was like I go to work, I come home, I played video games, I meme farm, whatever, and and then on the weekends it's like I'd go up into the attic with my desktop computer and hide for about 8 to 10 hours, and then after the weekend's done I have 5,000 to 8,000 words, and the wife's like, oh, you still live here? Yeah.
You're still alive?
You just smelled it and go away? Like, yeah, shut up.
But also, like, December hits, and once you've finished your things in November, you just put it away, and you don't look at it for several months until
April.
you can come back and look at it with fresh eyes to edit.
My writing professor once told me that is a great piece of advice. That whenever you're done with a piece of writing, you gotta take a break.
Yeah, and sometimes it does take several months in order to come back to it to be able to put your brain back into that
I think the general tips are always good. Find your process, put it away, surround yourself with as much surround yourself with as much examples as possible, because that's how you develop a frame of reference for what your style is.
Right.
Know that you're going to crap out a bunch of copycat stuff and original, and then you start to get your own voice and all that
That
stuff.
can be really frustrating,
It
though,
is.
when you're trying to write on a deadline. Like, I don't know how professional writers do it. I don't know that I
Practice,
could.
practice.
Like, with this play, I keep going back to it and adding new scenes, but I've gotten to the point that I don't really know what it all encompasses anymore, and I have to rely on people that I trust to read it and be like, is it okay or not?
That's
I
why
don't know.
you need the community. That's why you need, because of course
Absolutely.
professional writers have editors. Like, and we are professional writers,
Right.
so like,
A lot of them also don't have day jobs.
yeah. I mean, that's your so
Correct.
you're
Or two.
or you're freelance.
Yeah.
Because freelance writing is tough, and anytime I've done any writing on a deadline, you get it done, and you just because you need to get it submitted to the editor. So, all right,
Ready to the chair.
Bernie.
we're casting pods.
We have a surprise visitor who's also a writer and a professor of writing.
Hello.
Bernie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Bernie Kovacs. I'm an adjunct professor at Wilkes University and King's College.
This is actually a cheerful surprise. I've actually read some of the stuff that Bernie has written, and we're going to put him on the spot, and we're going to insert him into one of our writing prompts in a little bit. Carl, did you have anything that you were working on recently?
As I suck down some tater tots.
Could have gone anywhere from there.
Yeah.
Which is how it should be.
Tater tots in quotes, yes. Currently at the moment, no, kind of preparing for November and the NaNoWriMo. What I will probably be doing is my old standby of,
Porn.
well, not porn.
Toy porn. No.
Toy porn.
Not toy porn.
The
Generally-
toys come alive.
Generally with my writing, it's like, I don't know where to take this story. Let's throw in a supernatural monster as an antagonist and see how it goes. So that's generally my formula. It's,
As I'm staring at the Reanimator tattoo on your arm.
yeah.
We have
got the
plenty of
Reanimator, got
pictures
the
of
Hannibal
Cthulhu
Lecter,
around
and
us.
got a Resident Evil nurse. Yeah, it's fun art. Oh, and the Dark Mark of the Death Eaters for you Harry Potter fans. But yeah. But that's, just kind of prepping for that. I'm probably going to do like a superpower team up thing. I've got with the NaNoWriMo projects I've done have recurring characters from my own little, I don't know what to call mythology.
Carl Universe?
Yeah, the
Carlverse?
the Carloverse. I don't know. And I'll probably work them in somehow, which will be kind of funny.
That's a good point. Like, what are your thoughts on building a universe? Because that is a huge part of fiction writing, and Game of Thrones tanked it.
It's
Yeah.
also a huge mental exercise on Reddit.
And Bernie,
There's
I know
an
you have
entire
thoughts on
subreddit
this,
about
too.
universe building,
Yeah.
you know?
Like, it'd be nice to hear what you guys think about that.
Me, I like the wacky world of crap I write. Sounds so professional. So erudite, that man. It's essentially the world we live in. Usually, I kind of stick it in the 90s, 2000s, where too much technology can really put the kibosh on supernatural sightings and things like that. Although now with the advent of deep fakes, hey, anything's possible. So it was Cthulhu Wake coming out of Lake Champlain. He was eating champy for breakfast, yeah. Nom nom, plenty sore. But yeah, I throw that in. I read growing up, I read a lot. I still read a lot. Folklore. I work in stuff from Germanic folklore, Irish folklore, all over Native American stuff I read as a kid. And, I throw stuff in. My freaking email address is Wendigo at Gmail. So, cannibals are fun.
And it's a way to save the planet.
Population
no
control,
joke. There was a news article right
Bill
now
Burr would support it.
out about how cannibalism will save humanity, or something along those lines. I was like, whoa, really?
Long pig.
Well, I mean, as long as you got the right kind of sauce, I mean, anything's possible. But
Buffalo femur.
It's also not illegal in most places. It's
What, eating human flesh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, how you acquire it might be illegal, but the actual process is not.
Why do you know this?
Hey, you've been around.
The dark web.
He read it on Reddit, all right?
Reddit would never lie.
Yeah, that's the beacon of truth.
Just say I've had some
always
meals that have been
true.
finger licking
Chan.
good.
And not your fingers. Oh.
Mark, you have anything that you've been working on that you want to share?
Well, I didn't bring anything, but I've been working a lot. I've been doing short stories.
You just got published.
Yeah, you did just
I
get
did. Thank you very much.
So what got published and where?
Well, that's kind of the only story I had to contribute. It's a weird story because, like, I've been writing, I've been slaving and, like, tormenting myself, wrenching my brains, trying to make good product. And, like, this one I wrote real fast. Nothing else was getting picked up. Nothing else was getting any kind of attention. This one I wrote in, like, 4 hours. Nobody else read it. I sent it out and it got published. Well, like, that just throws everything on its head. I was just saying, like before, like, there is no expert could tell you how to do this. It's a matter of being
Try
in the
and
right
learn.
place at the right time and working in the way that works for you.
Collect your rejection slips. That's
Well,
the big thing.
that's-
Send everything. Send everything.
Well, yeah, that's a big aspect of it. Having thick skin and just keeping on going. But sometimes, man, you just hit the right thing, and there's no pattern to it. Like, I spent 10 years writing a novel and nobody wanted it. I spent 4 hours writing a short story and it got published. So, like, don't give up. Just keep on trying different things.
Well, and that's a good way to gauge where the audience is, where the zeitgeist is. Sometimes it just kind
It
of
helps you target in.
target in. Yeah,
Yeah.
focusing where you're going. Yeah.
Can you give us a conceptual taste of what you were writing?
Oh yeah, it's very easy. It was like 650 words. It was about a 10-year-old kid who wanted to throw an egg at the bully's house, and then he chickens out. And I just thought it was a neat little, like, I probably stole it from my own childhood. I'm always chickening out of things, so like.
Do you think that ultimately holding the egg in his hand subconsciously made him chicken out?
The chicken before the egg debate just froze him right there. To egg or not to egg.
There'll be another 650 words. But
All
it
right.
was just a fun little thing, and I didn't take it that seriously, and it worked out. So I don't know what to think.
Bernie, you writing anything lately?
I'm still fighting my way through a low fantasy novel that is just breaking me in half.
Describe the difference between low fantasy and high fantasy for our fans.
Okay, high fantasy's like Rolling Hills, Albion, Orcs, Elves, Tolkien style stuff. Low fantasy's less magic, a little grittier, more grounded. It's all shades of gray. There's no like, we have to destroy this, MacGuffin. Everything's driven by a MacGuffin. Yeah. Like,
God damn you, MacGuffin!
Yeah, like
Tiara to rule them all.
Like Fritz Lieber, like the Faffer and Grey Mouser's low fantasy.
So at this point, what I'd like to do is I'd like to give everybody 2 random sentences, and I'd like you all to put your spin within 5 minutes or so and just write with, around, because of those 2 sentences.
We'll keep talking while we're doing it.
Yeah,
We don't
absolutely.
have we'll need music. We could do like a 5-minute interlude of elevator music.
Well, yeah, we'll use the magic of editing to pass the time.
The craft happens live.
So everyone have a pencil or a pen?
I got notes.
Do you need a pen?
This segment is in part for my own vanity and also in part for my desire to see how people work within a period of time and how they add their taste, their flavor to something that they might have not pulled up on their own.
I'm just gonna.
Everyone
That's
equipped?
fine.
No. You want paper? Okay. Okay. Carl?
Yes, I changed my mind. Give me a paper and a pen for this.
And
He actually surprised us with this, so this is interesting.
yeah, feel free to rework any aspect of it. Reorganize the words. Imagine these sentences as a whisper in the back of your mind more so than something that was actually given to you.
Remnants of a dream.
I got a lot of those.
And then the wolves came.
So if you want to write them down, or if you want to just hold on to them mentally, it's up to you. However would work best for you. And we're going to do 5 minutes once you have both lines, and we'll see what you come up with. Whether it's poetry, whether it's a summary, an idea, a story. I just want to hear it all. So, partial prompt 1. Whispering into the wind, words of chaos. Partial prompt number 2. For fear of stolen roses.
What was it again?
For fear of stolen roses.
Fear of stolen roses.
Fear is in, I'm afraid.
Rawr.
Oh, for fear, not fair.
Yeah.
Fear.
Fear of stolen.
Whispering into the wind, words of chaos.
And we're trying to use both.
Yes and no.
Nebulous.
I think the people at home should join us and send us their results.
I think if
like
this
that
is on
idea.
YouTube, comment your best.
Comment your best
YouTube?
iteration, reiteration, or derivation of the following.
I'm sure to prompt all this stuff in the description, things we've mentioned, stuff like that.
For fear of stolen roses, whispering into the wind, words of chaos.
Oh, he works fast.
You didn't make this email.
Does anybody else feed supervillain? I'm thinking very supervillain-esque. Might as well talk the process out a little bit.
Sure. Well,
Just so
give it a couple of minutes before you talk. So
Gotcha.
Yes, he does. The one over by the bird.
So personally, I have these random blips of words that occur to me all day, every day. Generally, I'm too lazy to write them down. But when I do, sometimes they're okay, and sometimes I pull them together and use them to create something. Sometimes I feel like they'd be more appropriate to be attached to a photograph or something visual. Other times I think that as ideas or words, they stand and they work pretty well. So I want to see what other creative types that I've watched create and I've read their creations make of these chunks. And see how inspiration, even externally, can drive what they make.
This is where we are. Yeah, so that's like the big port city. We went down this way, into here, and then came over. Yeah, so then I'm probably coming from the mountains this way. Okay. Alright, so good. So
We've got approximately 2 more minutes.
Pretty easy to miss places in the jungle. Yeah, we don't like run right through it. Were you traveling alone? Yes. Oh, great. So again, there's not many people who like me. That's okay. Nix is like that. They left her in a desert.
Well, it might be a bit more dangerous to be traveling by yourself. It's also a lot easier to go unnoticed.
We attract a fair amount of notice. Crocodiles, weird man monkey clouds, snails. Although we kind of found
Got about 20 seconds to close those thoughts.
First will be the tens.
That's 100. Okay. If you want each way, go ahead. You roll both of them.
Oh, okay. This will give you a number between 1 and 100. 3, 4.
This was very weirdly Final Jeopardy, though. Like,
Wow, how quick did those 5 minutes go? Like,
Yeah,
I always
Jesus.
thought 5 minutes was like almost an eternity when you like.
There should
sat
probably be a
down.
timestamp in there for when we start talking.
Is that a timer?
Honestly, I might have not looked at the clock too closely.
This fucking bullshit, man.
we might have a whole nother minute.
We were talking about deadlines. We just
All right, so now you're in
experienced how it
that
is.
fantasy situation in a test where you have an extra minute.
I'm done. I'm done.
No.
I'm done.
No, no.
Done.
Oh, now
Jared, you said
writing.
20 seconds.
Now you don't want the extra minute. I see.
No, I do.
It's just like hitting snooze.
All right.
What I do want
Hands
is
down.
some of those loaded tots. Can I,
He
Lots
wants
of
to- he
teachers
wants to
around.
steal
can I
some
snag?
shots.
Can I snag a tot? Is
They
that
can
okay?
have
the
more
whole
than
time.
yeah.
They've been here the whole
Have
time.
more than one because
They're so good.
Dan had initially wrote down great idea until the whole 4-minute thing happened.
Well, I just crossed. I thought it was a
Then he
great.
crossed it
Because
out.
you really like. This is a cool idea, and I really like it. And I think other people. I hope they genuinely do actually try it with us. But I crossed out so I don't read great idea as I read the piece. It had nothing to do with the content. I was like, I better cross that out so I don't go, line great because they're on separate lines.
All right, I think we're definitely in like the 5 minute and 1
Yeah,
second.
it's over.
mark,
It's
so-
Oh, now you're writing again.
Al's cheating.
Whatever.
Al's drunk and cheating.
He's gonna lose 10 points on his final.
All right, my final grade.
Hands down.
So the entire time I've been going immediately to my left. Let's start up to my right.
Alright.
Bernie, you're first.
Oh, okay. I just went with one of the prompts because you give me something and I just have a tendency to go. So I read it.
Yeah.
Alright, for fear of stolen roses, Stan bought a Rottweiler. It was a big dog, the kind of dog you pictured a seedy strip club bouncer holding leashed at the entrance to discourage patrons from getting handsy. I can't read my own handwriting. It made Stan uncomfortable to have to go to such extreme measures, but he swore to, Jesus Christ, to every god of every pantheon that if Myron ever tried to run off with flowers again, he'd sick that mad dog on that insane fucker's ass. It all started last Tuesday, as calm and placid a Tuesday as you could get, when Myron appeared. What's that say? This is why I type. Myron appeared sans brimstone flourish, looking exactly like the kind of fellow you'd expect to shoplift at a florist's.
All right. That had an entirely different spin on it than I had imagined, and that's precisely what I wanted to see or experience. That's great. Mark?
I'm incapable of writing anything in 5 minutes. Just like it would take me 3 weeks to think of a NaNoWriMo idea. So I just thought of an idea,
Sure.
like a scenario, and I tried to put the two together. So Whispering in the Wind, Words of Chaos for Fear of Stolen Roses. I saw a natural disaster, and there's a lot of fear spreading about, say, a hurricane, flooding, whatever. The neighborhood starts to panic. Somebody makes the decision to start looting, like at that moment where you go, I'm going to take advantage of this. And then he or she steals his neighbor's prized possessions, maybe like, not necessarily roses, but some beautiful thing that the neighbor cherished. And this guy's like, I'm going to steal it. Now, either he regrets it and or the natural disaster passes by and there is no problem and he just stole his neighbor's stuff. And that's just a moral, like a semi-funny moral dilemma. And that's usually where I go to when I write.
We want to hear that story now.
I might work on that.
Yeah, go for it. Please. That'd be something to share next time. Carl?
Yes. I got something started, but I was typing on my phone and now I'm slow with the typing. On the phone, I have large sausage-like fingers. Anyway.
Finger looking good.
Yes. The long pig. Anyway. I kind of tried to incorporate both. Whispering into the wind, words of chaos and for fear of stolen roses. So, here we go. The door to Lizzie's Lilies chimed as the two men rushed to the counter. Excuse me. Tater tot went down the wrong pipe. Start over. The door to Lizzie's Lilies chimed. Again. The door to Lizzie's Lilies chimed as the two men rushed to the counter, nylon stockings over their heads and toting pistols. "Empty the register, bitch!" the taller of the robbers yelled, leveling his high-point YC9 yeet cannon at the clerk.
Oh, dearie, manners make the man. Ask me nicely, and I'll give you your riches. But touch my roses.
A cold wind swept through the store as her hair whipped.
Well, don't touch them, Sonny.
That's all I got.
Describe that a little bit. I got kind of like a witchy vibe from her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of Baba Yaga ran a flower shop.
Oh, okay.
Not a lot of kids there. Well, they're in a stew, but yeah.
Something's got to feed the roses.
Oh, yeah.
It's rich in nitrogen.
Baba Yaga roses.
Thank you.
Sarah?
Unfortunately, my brain is not working. It just gave me ideas for something to write in the future.
That's cool.
But what it came down to was for Fear Stolen Roses as a band, and you see the audience standing watching these people up on stage, and they're whispering words of chaos and bringing darkness in to this unsuspecting audience.
So, like, Stolen Roses it's a band, but they kind of have like a worshipers thing going on. I see.
Yep.
That's pretty cool. Reminds me of like Lestat. Yeah. Like, whether they know it or not, their worship and appreciation of him is kind of, fueling something darker. And I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's Kristen.
Kristen.
Yes.
Thank you.
So I couldn't really think of anything long. It's just a sentence.
Sure.
And it could be like a 50 Shades of Grey. You could go that avenue.
Well, I was waiting for the porn to come. And
It's just a sentence on how I would like spin it, like what way I would go. So the sentence is, I can imagine in a night when he and I fall into each other's arms, words of chaos whisper into the wind. So I can go any.
Yeah.
Something
any
rose
route.
in his pads. What
Do you want to switch seats with me?
His face, he's like,
Read it to me again.
that's going to be read later.
Mars?
Alright, so I'll use the second one. The cemetery was packed tonight. Sleeping bags, tents, and collapsible camp chairs littered the ground between the cold white gravestones like so many nylon flowers left in offering. The cognac and roses were on Poe's grave, as they were every year. Now we waited to see if someone came in the night to take them. I wasn't sure how the tradition had started. Did they have a designated thief? One would hope there was some sort of fan lottery, but it was probably just some Aurora Lee wannabe able to repeat the Raven ad infinitum whether anyone wanted to hear it or not.
I like that. I like the idea of this desperately wanton person who is so trying to be dark that they're stealing romantic roses from a cemetery. And you know that they're a pain in the ass because, as you said, like, whether you want it or not, they're going to recite the dark poetry to you because they want you to understand how brooding and dark they are.
It was funny when you said Stolen Roses. I'm like, we were just talking about Poe and the cognac and roses like this morning, and I'm like, oh, there it is. Ow.
Love it when that works out.
It's like, look at how
So-
tragically romantic I am.
I think I have just a few short lines of a potential poem to give like a little context of it. And I used the first one, "Whispering into the Wind," words of chaos. I bartend, so it immediately drew me to like how some people will sit at the bar and get like super political, but they're like so contradictory to themselves. Like, it's like, hold on, wait a second, guy. So, whispering into the wind, words of chaos flutter through the barroom. Calls of systemic anarchy are posted. Fuck them all. They're all corrupt. Fuck them all. on the Barstool Philosopher. And that's all I got. Yeah, there are a lot of people that have really hot political takes, and especially when they get drunker, you're like, oh, buddy, yeah, you should run for mayor. You're going to change the whole system.
Get on that soapbox, baby.
Can I have another? How about a water and, like, maybe, like, here's the number of a counselor you can actually speak to instead of just me.
Dan?
Yeah, so I am that emo poet, so that's where I went with it. I took one element to the title and worked the other one in, so it's called...
I stole the roses.
What's that?
I stole the roses.
Yeah, so it's called Whispering into the Wind Words to Chaos. But why? For fear of stolen roses, since I have attached my heart to them, in the hope I would not be in this position, whispering, shouting, still bloody from the thorns. Perhaps I should give my all to chaos. After all, one cannot lose what is always the lost, and besides, it's the only being that listens. It wasn't that good. It was a little dark emo goth poem from me.
Have you ever seen Onyx the Fortuitous?
No.
Yes.
What is that?
Okay, Onyx the Fortuitous is a guy who makes YouTube videos. He cuts himself into interviews. He starts rambling stuff, and it's just out there. That's the only way you can describe it. You're reading that, and I'm like, oh god, this would make such a great Onyx the Fortuitous thing. Just gotta add like I don't know at the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like that's awesome. I love it.
I was thinking about Whispering into the Wind Words of Chaos reminded me of Neil Gaiman for some reason. We were just talking about him, and he's on my mind because of Sandman.
He's got that
read
very
Sandman if you haven't read Sandman. It's
dark
awesome.
and romantic characteristic about him. You know,
Morpheus is just basically, what's his name from The Cure? Robert Smith. Satan's made after Bowie. It's amazing. Death after what's her name? Singer Tori Amos. So read Sandman if you haven't read Sandman.
Yes.
I haven't, but I think I will now because that's my playlist.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess this is the conclusion of the first meeting of the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants.
Yes.
Actually, I think we're going to call ourselves Earning Our Rights.
Explain that. It's a pun.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a pun. You'll see when it's written out. It's going to get a lot less political when you read it.
Yeah.
It's very nice.
Thank you for your time and your creativity.
Also, we would like to thank the Game Chateau for letting us host this here.
In Plains, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, if you're ever in Plains, Pennsylvania, you can come to the Game Chateau.
They have good food.
Good food, good drinks, good people.
Ask for
Loaded tots.
Ask for a pumpkin spice and tell them Daryl sent you.
And they have board games and
RPGs.
RPGs and board games and dice.
And you might
paints
see us
for
just
painting
drunkenly
kits and stuff.
talking in the corner. And you could just come on because we don't give a fuck.
Oh, and if you're watching this on YouTube, remember to hit like and subscribe. And remember to ring that bell so you'll get updates when we update. And if you didn't like what we had to say, go ahead and hit the dislike button twice.
Enjoy your toy porn.
Yes.
Yes.